My father came to India in 1947 through the partition, and he was 12 years old when he came to India with merely the clothes on his body.
My God.
He had a family of 10, and his mother, so she had actually sewn 50 rupees on the inseam of his
Mhm.
shorts. That's the money that they had, 50 rupees for a family of 10 who landed in India on 15th August.
Welcome to the second season of the Absolutely Right podcast, the first graphology based podcast show in India. I'm your host, Aditi Surana. I am a graphologist and a high performance coach. The first 100 episodes of the show definitely taught us a lot. But the most important lessons that we have learned is to understand the impact our work is having. Thank you so much for all your love, all your trust, and adulation through this process. Some people, some of our listeners thought that we are ending the show with our season one, and it was overwhelming to read some of your heartfelt messages. Suresh from Dubai said, I was heartbroken to hear that it was your last episode. I paused for a while and couldn't grasp the next 5 minutes of the episode. I had to stop and hear it all over again then to understand that you're starting the next season. Thank you, Suresh. Anjana from Pune said, absolutely right episodes are part of my weekly routine and my weekly dose of calmness. Thank you. A young teacher, Juera from South Africa, said graphology is helping her deal with her teenage students better. She says she is less irritated with them. I cannot tell you how these small, everyday stories of personal change are so meaningful for me. I believe it takes a lot for anyone to stay committed to these small, in a way negligible, but massive personal growth changes. Having said that, if we set our minds to something, no matter how big or small the task is, we can do a lot. American artist Kerry James Marshall is famous for his paintings of black figures. He once said, I don't believe in hope, I believe in action. There are always going to be complications, but to a large degree, everything is in your hands. I cannot agree more. To a large degree, no matter what happens in front of you in your life, a lot of things are in your hands. You can always decide how to react, create an impact, whether to quit, give up, or learn, rise, and suit up. All I would say is I am committed to inviting some fascinating people as a guest on the show. People who chose to walk the precarious path, and no matter what happened, they truly believed that creating your life is always in your hands. Which, by the way, is the theme of season two. Yes, when you look at handwriting and graphology, a lot can happen with your handwriting. So, creating your life is always in your hands. I'm loving it. You may already know on the Absolutely Right Wednesday episode, I use graphology to interview some path breakers, change makers, inspiring leaders, and entrepreneurs. Their stories are transformational, inspiring, and in a way, infectious. And by the way, in this season, on the Absolutely Right, bite sized Friday solo episodes, I will help you declutter your mind, deal with your anxiety, and cultivate a routine followed by some of the most brilliant minds in the world handwritten journaling. You got it right. I have been speaking about it forever. I will give you new journaling questions each week. The simple routine will help you deal with some of your most complicated challenges, especially with a tadka of graphotherapy to it. Without further ado, let me introduce you to our guest today. As a doctor, his visionary approach towards women's health has helped bring a change and improve the health outcomes and health indices in the country. Besides being a successful entrepreneur, he is a global traveler, amateur chef, travel photographer, and a DJ. Yes, you heard it correct, a trained DJ. Founder and managing director of Suburban Diagnostics, Dr. Sanjay Arora is known to be a leader in the diagnostics and healthcare industry. He has trained at the esteemed TATA Hospital, Johns Hopkins Hospital, and Henry Ford Hospital in the US. By the way, he recently started his own podcast show, Unburden Your Health with Dr. Sanjay Arora. As you listen to this episode, make sure that you listen to our popular segments of the show. Autograph, please, where I will be looking at Dr. Sanjay's unusually legible signature. I'm saying that because he's a doctor. He's supposed to have this illegible writing, isn't it? I will describe how he is misunderstood by people around him. As many of you have requested to see the actual stroke formation as I describe it, we will be releasing these episodes as a video format on YouTube every Wednesday and Friday. you can subscribe to our YouTube channel at Aditi Surana. Now, let's jump straight into my conversation with Dr. Sanjay Arora, the managing director and founder of Suburban Diagnostics, right away. Hi, Sanjay. Welcome to our show. I am so excited to talk about your handwriting, especially because you mentioned how handwriting is an integral part of your life and your personality. Please tell me from your perspective, why do you like to write?
Aditi, thank you so much, for inviting me to be part of your show. I've been excitedly waiting for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Mainly so, for two reasons. One is my fascination for the word Aditi. Uh,
Okay.
I have a daughter by the same name,
Okay.
so that's the first line of connect. And the second is handwriting. I have always prided myself with my handwriting right from school days.
Okay.
Uh, Friends who have known me since childhood, I've always said that they hated me because the teacher would always take my notebook and show it around. Why can't you write as neatly as Sanjay does? Why can't you have your books, well written like him?
Mm-hmm.
And I have one incident where I was in class 4, and I remember this very clearly.
Mm-hmm.
My class teacher, uh, took my book around and went around the class, uh, showing everybody, see, this is
Right.
how it should be written.
Okay.
And we were on the fourth floor of the school building, and she picked up two notebooks of two students and just threw it out of the window.
Really?
And and she made them go down as a punishment to go and get the book. She just flung the book out of the window.
Because they
And then she
were,
said,
I
because the
am
handwriting was not good.
I'm totally judging that teacher right away. Like, what if? So I have this line, I use
So
it a lot. No body shaming when it comes to handwriting. So no.
yeah, no, absolutely. I think it was more embarrassing for me, despite just being, I think, 8 years old at that time,
Yeah.
8 or 9 years old. That is still very, very vivid in my memory. It's so many years ago, but I still remember that. And there used to be another friend of mine in school, Neelab Kaul from
Okay.
Kashmir, and he and I used to always, compete whose handwriting was better, and I always admired Nilab for his handwriting. Very, very, very good.
How
And
nice.
when you write with a fountain pen or an ink pen, I think it takes your handwriting to a completely different level.
I agree.
Uh, I don't think people today even know what a fountain pen is. People sometimes don't even know what a pen is.
Yeah, I was about to
Uh,
say, I think that is more appropriate. Having said that, graphologically speaking, when you write with a fountain pen or anything that has flowing ink as a fundamental way of writing, it alters your pressure. You start writing in a softer pressure. You do not exert, because you're concerned
so
about the
true.
nib and the flow breaks. So I recommend that people should write with a ballpoint pen.
Right.
And many of my clients like really don't like me saying that because they have this whole collection that they take pride in, and then I suddenly show up and I say, I don't think you should be using it because it alters your pressure. So yes.
And the other aspect is, as a doctor, you are expected to have bad handwriting.
Right, so it's like a
So
contradictory life for you.
yeah, yeah. So they say, are you really a doctor? I mean, because your handwriting is so good. So obviously you are not really a doctor. So I said, well, there are exceptions to the rule.
So, to all our listeners, I keep telling people that please look for a doctor whose handwriting is legible. That is a sign of integrity. So, yes, you have found one already.
Thank, thank you, Aditi. Thank you.
Now, first thing that came to my mind when I looked at your handwriting was your capital letter I. Now, this is not any capital letter, but this one, which is we call graphologically personal pronounced I, where you say I am Sanjay, or when you describe anything that you're doing. Now, that I is essential because it talks about not only you as a person, which it does, but it also talks about your connection with your parents, with your mother and
Oh,
father, and how influenced you are and how supported you felt. So before I talk about anything specifically in your handwriting, that stood out because both your parents really worked very hard for you to build yourself the way you have, and even your siblings if you have any.
spot on, spot on, spot on. I mean, wow, wow. I can just say wow. And you and I are interacting for the first time, but again, people who know me best, I'm an open book. So what you see is what you get, and I express myself very, very freely.
Mhm.
Uh, and everyone knows that I am where I am purely because of my parents.
Oh,
My father, as I say, is the wind beneath my wings.
wow.
I stand here, I sit here, I am existing today. Of course, they gave me birth, but after that, I mean, unbelievable amount of commitment, dedication, perseverance, focus in bringing up both my sister and myself. My sister, I have a younger sibling,
Mm.
was about 5 years younger to me, but 20 years ahead in life. Her thinking is much more forward. So both my sister and myself, uh, you know, we are the best parents in the world, absolutely.
And
And
I must say that you're not saying it because they're your parents, but I must bring some aspect of how dedicated they were in everyday choices. It is not a generic idea of bringing up kids, but making sure that your values or your upbringing was designed, which very few people can achieve. They desire to do it, but very few parents can achieve that. So that
right.
dedication is commendable, definitely.
No, I can relate to it by giving you one incident.
Please.
Probably one of the biggest incidents. Um, my father came to India in 1947 through the partition. He
Okay.
was Both of them are born in what is now Pakistan,
Okay.
and he was 12 years old when he came to India with merely the clothes on his body.
My God.
He had a family of 10, and his mother, my grandmom, was a very wise woman. So she had actually sewn 50 rupees on the inseam of his shorts. He was wearing half pants, shorts, and she had removed the seam and then put 50 rupees inside it and sewed it back. That's the money that they had, 50 rupees for a family of 10 who landed in India uh, on 15th August, or just around that, 1947, going through the entire
My God.
trials and tribulations of that partition. Their train was stopped and shot at. My dad's aunt got injured in the leg. So they went through and they lived in a refugee camp for a few months before they could start their life. So as a result of this, my father had to start working at a very young age.
Hmm.
So he never really got an opportunity to do formal education.
Right.
He did night schooling
Hmm.
to finish his primary education. And then at the age of 37, when my sister was already there, he did his MBA. And then at the age of 82, he did his PhD.
Oh my God, that's inspiring. That's
Yes,
unbelievable.
yes,
Wow.
yes.
Wow.
And but then when I was born, he enrolled me for India's premier boarding school, or one of India's premier boarding schools,
Hmm.
called Mayo College in Ajmer.
Okay.
And was convinced that a sound education is the best foundation you can give to any child.
Right.
And because he sort of had to struggle during his childhood, he
Hmm.
made sure my sister and I got the best. So we went absolutely to the best schools. And then I went to India's premier boarding school when my family could not even afford it, and everybody at that time had the feeling that boarding school is meant only for children who are naughty, not disciplined. And here
Sure.
I was a topper in my school, and I did well in school.
Right.
But he was very convinced that that's going to be a great experience for me. So for the years that I was in boarding school, my family did not buy any new clothes. They did not go for any dinner outside. They did not go for any holiday. They did not do anything that was, would have allowed them to spend any money. Everything was
Dedicated to your
saved
education.
and dedicated to my education.
In
I mean, so what you just said, I'm sure it reflects back in what I'm giving you as an example. And there are
Sure.
so many of them, Aditi. There's so many of them, but this was probably the biggest one I could share with you.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that story because so many times we all forget, how our parents have contributed and we take things for granted. So thank you so much for sharing that story. The next thing that came to my mind when I looked at your writing is a stroke in your letter M. When you write your letter M, it's very rounded. It has like, even the lowercase m has those two loops, two humps, which are broad and circular in their shape. Now, anybody who writes letter M like that is a collector of information, of anything that interests you. I'm sure you have many books that one day you will read. You're yet to reach and read all of them. But yes, you keep collecting books, you keep collecting things. So the physical I would say acquisition, but at the same time, connection with things and having them around you really, really matters to you.
I don't know if my wife spoke to you before this or not, so so wow. I mean, I'm just so amazed, Aditi. Fantastic. This,
Thank you.
it could not be more spot on again. So when I moved into our new house, there are two things that I showcase very with a lot of pride.
Okay.
Actually, now three things.
Okay.
The first thing is my collection of CDs.
Okay.
So in today's day and age, when everybody's on digital music,
Right.
I have a collection of from my first CD. Again, I can tell you which was the first CD that my father bought me in the early 80s,
Oh my
and I
God.
still have that CD.
You
Uh,
had a CD in early 80s?
yeah,
That's
so exactly. So, that's how my introduction to music came very
wow.
early in life.
Okay.
And so I had a CD player, and my father had gone to London on work, and then he told me. So I told him I want this particular CD. So he went to London and he got me that CD, and I still have that. And after that, of course, my collection of CDs has just continued to grow. So whenever friends come over, first thing to do is open that cupboard and see, wow, you still have so many CDs. And right next to that is a small library that I've built. And
What is small? What is small?
small small is a very relative term. Perfect. So if you ask Anju, my wife, and she will tell you, please keep him away from any bookstore. We recently traveled from Delhi. We had gone for 2 days of work, and at any airport you
Airport,
have a
yeah.
bookstore. 7 books is what I bought within a
Minimum.
span of 10 minutes. And she says, "Tu padhta to hai nahi. You don't read most of them. Why do you collect these books?" I'll tell him,
And
my M tells me to collect things.
yeah, now blame it on the M. Like it's
Blame it on
okay.
the M. And the third thing is, I love wearing ties to work.
No, okay.
So I have a story of a tie that I got via post. So there's a site, Italian site called giftties.com.
Okay.
And this again, I'm talking about maybe uh, late 80s, early 90s. Uh, and I went online and I saw this lovely silk Italian tie that I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, okay, I want this tie. And so I ordered for the tie and I used my credit card, not realizing that at that time, the credit card, so this would be in the early 90s then.
Hmm.
The credit card does not have an international transaction
Transaction.
capability. Yeah. So I went ahead and I paid for it on the credit card, and whatever the sites at that time probably allowed it. Then, my wife, who's, uh, much smarter than I am, and then, tells me that, "Arey," she says, "you can't use this card. The bank will, have a problem and, foreign exchange issues. So you please write to them that you can't order this tie."
Hmm.
So I wrote back to them that by mistake I used my credit card, which does not have capabilities
International.
for an international transaction. So kindly cancel my order, and I'm sorry, I can't order this tie. They said, "Thank you for writing back to us, but consider it a gift from our side."
So sweet. Oh.
And
Oh.
so we forgot about it. He said, "Oh, okay, it's a joke."
Yeah.
And few weeks later, small box came with the regular postman. Huh? This is not courier. This is
Oh,
the
okay.
regular postman. The postman came, and my sister and my wife make fun of me. Was the postman actually wearing the tie around his neck? And I still have that tie with me. It's so many years. It's up close to maybe almost 30 years, and
Yeah.
I've collected so many ties. So the three things that I show people is the collection of ties, the collection of CDs, and the collection of books that I have. And you hit it spot on. I'm embarrassed about the collection of clothes that I have also, but we'll keep that for another day. But perfect. I mean, I'm a hoarder. I'm a hoarder. I know I once it comes to me, it doesn't go out.
So, we're going to do this. We're going to create a special access to spouses of our guests to talk to me about things I speak about. So, Sanjay, over to you. What questions do you have for me?
So, you know, uh, what I was told that you will be able to tell me about my personality, about my leadership style. let me start by saying that leadership is, for me, like an acquired skill. And each day I try to become a better version of myself,
Nice.
because I don't think you can actually perfect that.
True.
When Anju and I started our company 27 years ago, it was just the two of us,
Mm.
and we had a very small team. So it was almost about working with people.
Mm.
And then from two to 20 to 50 to 100, today we have close to 1,200 people that work with us. And I'm less of a medical professional and more administrative
Entrepreneur.
professional, an entrepreneur. Yeah. So, it's always interesting to learn, that what should be my approach with people. People tell me that I'm extremely naive. I trust people very easily. Uh, and sometimes it comes back to hit me as well. So maybe would like to get your perspective on, is there something in my handwriting that you feel I should learn from, that will allow me to become a more effective leader, where I can instill trust, uh, uh, but at the same time, be careful about over trusting.
Okay. So what a great question. Like my favorite question to talk about leadership and all the aspects, especially trust. Now, before I say anything, I want to talk about one particular letter in your writing, which is letter O, lowercase o most of the time. When we write in a connected style, in any form of cursive, any connected style, suddenly the O loops, people think because of my connections, these loops have internal knots in it. In your case, your handwriting is one mostly disconnected, but it also has very clear O letters. The letter O does not have any internal hook or loop inside. That
Okay.
talks about the person who is very frank and clear at heart. Now, whatever you do, and even in negotiations, even when you are supposed to, project and say certain things and pretend in a particular way, you say things as is. You believe that if I got to go through this deal and do certain things, I need to put all my cards in my order. You won't be like naive in that sense. So, naive is not the word. I won't agree with that. I think you are
Okay.
highly observant of people. And even if when you say that you trust them, there is this constant observation that is going on. So all the people where you felt that your trust was broken, it wasn't a surprise for you. You had observed those minute tendencies and behaviors because you are
Sure.
highly observant. And even if you give a task to someone, your trust is not blind.
Sure.
You look at things but you don't want to mistrust anybody unless until they prove you otherwise.
Absolutely. So, I attended a session with Jim Collins. He's a very famous business author, and he said that, you should not have people to earn your trust, but they get only one chance to break your trust.
Exactly.
So I like that a lot, and that resonates very well with me. That I trust people. I don't want them to have to work to earn that trust, but then they get one chance, but to break it. So I am like that, and I am somebody who wears my heart on my sleeve. So what you see is what you get, and you mentioned about being open. I had a presentation a few days back with uh, MBA students in one of the management colleges of Goa.
Mhm.
And I had created like I said, I was well prepared with my presentation and,
Mhm.
worked hard with my team. And my team helped me build. So there was one concept that I was building with, our head of marketing.
Mhm.
So she and I had constructed the whole blueprint on our whiteboard, which then our designer captured into a very nice animation.
Mhm.
And when somebody looked at that animation, they said, wow, this is, great, because this is like the diagnostic industry on one slide.
Mhm.
But when I went to Goa and I shared the presentation, I told the professor, if somebody wants this presentation, please give it to them. Then my IT head came back and said, Dr. Rao, you can't do this. This is your blueprint. This is what you have worked for. You can't distribute it freely to everybody. So I guess something what you just explained.
Yep.
Uh, the other thing that I wanted to ask you was, giving feedback
Mm.
is always a challenge for me, because I'm always hesitant in. I'm not saying I don't call a spade, but I don't want to hurt
Hurt the
anybody.
speed.
Yeah, I don't want to. Perfect. So, is there something which you could, give me your inputs on about, how can I become better at giving feedback to people where it's not personal, but yet it is meaningful?
Okay. So, first thing, are you a direct person? Yes, you are. So many times you'll end up saying things the way they are, and most people are not ready to take it. Most people want to go around it. They want to, say things in a softer manner. So you have been forcefully training yourself to be really, really soft and not say things in a rude manner. I'm sure your wife has played an important role in correcting lots of your
Absolutely.
mannerisms when it came to not knowing. So this is where the challenge is. You being very, very clear in your thoughts about whatever you want to go and what you want to do, then being very clear about your intent that you really want to help the other person, and being direct is a lethal combination. Because when we put all these things together, the
Right.
feedback can go really pointed. Another aspect of your feedback and overall your leadership style is your intuition, which very few people are aware of. So many things are not logically driven, but you do see the gaps, and you can read between the lines in ways that are only known to you. So
Right.
thereby, when you're giving feedback, you see the three steps that the person will walk and fall or fail. So in order to protect the person already, you become really invested in giving feedback. And this is where the challenge is, because if people can't see what you can see, it becomes extremely difficult for them to believe what you're saying. So
Amazing. Amazing again. I mean, uh, I could not have explained it better because uh, I work so much on gut feel,
yes,
so much on gut feel. And a large part of building my enterprise, building the organization, working with people is that gut feel or that instinct or intuition. Do I get a good feel? Do I get a good vibe? And yeah, I visited one of my uh, centers uh, just a couple of days back, and my senior or leadership team always tells me that, Doc, be careful in uh, going two levels below and trying to
talk to me.
help them or talk to them, because you overindulge sometimes, and but like you said, that I'm able to I've done this and I can maybe sense some sort of a journey, and I'm just trying to nudge them in that direction. Maybe sometimes it's taken as being overindulgent. So, point well taken. Thank you so much for sharing that, Aditi.
Also, most
Really
of the
nice.
time people think intuition is about that, random feeling. But more I work with people, especially leaders, the gut feel, especially the decision making gut feel that we develop, is by multiple occurrences that you have gone through, the numerous experiences that you have lived through. And after
Absolutely.
seeing the pattern over and over again, it becomes predictable by the observation, and that's the brain's capacity to deal with this information. So it is not a random spiritual idea here, but here it is an experience skill that is built over the years. So it feels like a gut feel, but it's actually your trained muscle that you're counting on. So
Sure. Absolutely. So true. And one other thing that linked to this I wanted to check was about being uh, fair, being equitable. So I'm a very inclusive person, and I would like to hear people in before we take. So it's not about me and I; it's about we always.
mm,
But sometimes that is seen by people that I'm not being. Uh, I wouldn't say spineless. When I need to stand up, of course I will. But maybe I give maybe too much of
freedom.
freedom to people to express themselves, and then it's more a collective decision rather than me taking a decision. Maybe some thoughts from you on that, if that's come out in any way.
So I think what you just said takes genuine work at personal level, and also being self-aware to make a leader like this, who is one, inclusive, also willing to accept his mistakes, which you are most of the time. Also, being inclusive in your case means that sharing the responsibility. So when it comes to doing the work, it's not your idea being executed, but people who work towards it are
Right.
are benefiting and learning and growing together. that whole sense of family matters to you a lot. So is it coming from low self esteem? Is it coming from genuinely being humble? Is your question, as I understand.
I mean, it's definitely not low self-esteem. I think, I am very proud of, whatever I have done and what we have achieved as a family, as an organization. Absolutely no question. And this, is there a lot more to do? Have we reached the top? Absolutely not. There's a lot more to do. But definitely, I don't think, I have that evident, that element of low self-esteem, I think.
So I want to
And
add, I want to give you a stroke here. So if you look at the way you write T and H letters next to each other, every time you do that, the letter H is is sometimes taller than the letter T, and sometimes the letter T is taller than the letter H. Now, if the letter H is always taller, that shows tremendous amount of learnability, which you have partially. So when you are
right,
in that learnable zone, you are willing to drop things, do whatever it takes. It's literally like your journey with everything that you do. And then there's also other side when you become like, okay, let me just pause and think through. So it is a both way journey. It is not a one way journey the way people understand. You are learnable, you are open, you are very self aware, but when it comes to authority and putting your foot down, you do that. So I do not see that as a challenge. I feel it is a choice. How we call situational leadership, or
yes,
in Sanskrit we say samadama danda bheda niti. So you
right,
got to use all the tools required. So when you require authority, you become that. And when you require to become a student and become humble and be as receptive as you require to be,
right.
definitely that trait is open. So I don't see that as a challenge. And people think you do it by default. I do not agree with them. I think you do
So
it as a choice.
yeah, I guess, as you said, that it's it's a series of experiences over so many years that teaches you how to become more adaptable to a situation, how to respond to it better. And one example is that I'm known for my short temper,
Mhm.
um, and I have a very short fuse.
Okay.
But I've worked very hard at uh, trying to be more um, respectful of people, of not sort of shouting my mouth off, of being sensitive to the words that I use, on how I use them, in front of whom I speak. It's not perfect. I still do it sometimes. I've worked a lot. So people who saw me maybe 20 years ago and who see me today, they find a dramatic difference in the way I, you know, deal with the same situation, less anxious, less stressed, and maybe a little more patient also.
Mhm.
But then there are some people who also say that, Dr. Arora, strength comes, so when you are, at your not angry best, but at that zone, perhaps you
Aggressive
think
tiger zone.
aggressive. Yeah. So if you are also at the edge, you are making people also at the edge, it sort of generates that kind of momentum. But I think the role that I am playing today is more of being a coach, a guide, a mentor, a sounding board, uh, and not somebody who should be, putting people down or, critical. Because I am a perfectionist. That's the way I look at it. I don't know if that's coming out in the words or not, but I'm a perfectionist. I try and do everything really well. You know, if I can't do it, I'd rather not do it at all. So I guess sometimes that comparison always comes, and I'm trying to become better at that.
Okay. So perfectionism is about not making mistakes or fearing making mistakes, whereas in your case, it is more of pursuit of excellence. So if you're doing something, it has to be done in the best possible manner, and that's the pursuit. Like it's not about whether people like it or not, whether they appreciate it or not. You want to make sure if it leaves your desk, it has to be your best possible shot. I think this is where it comes from. So
Absolutely.
perfectionism from fear based is not our concern here. For
Yeah, it's not fear.
impatience.
It's just to tell myself that I did the best I could. Absolutely
Perfect.
right.
Perfect.
Perfect. Perfect. Absolutely.
So when we look at impatience, in your case, I agree with you. Impatience is a concern. And even for our listeners and even for you, there's one particular stroke that I speak a lot about called flow of thoughts, where we really use mind and body coordinated handwritten movement to
Right.
actually calm your mind. I'm going to send you the link, and I'm also going to mention that in our description box for our listeners to take a look and give it a shot, because so many times we think temper is about me figuring out why am I getting angry? Why is it happening? Why am I
Right.
impatient? And anxiety is a lot to do with your bodily reactions to things.
Sure.
When we use body, which is handwriting, to calm down certain things, it starts working on your mind on its own. So
Right.
many issues can be resolved like that. So let's start the next segment of our conversation, which is about autographs. And the segment is called Autograph Please. I'm going to look at your signature and talk about
Okay.
how people misunderstand you.
Okay.
Okay. So as I do that, please share a story with us if you have had a moment where
Absolutely.
people totally, did not get your intent there.
Right.
So first thing that comes to my mind, because they think that you are this clear-minded person or you are open about your ideas, they think you are easy to be convinced. And that's not true whatsoever.
Very true. Very true. Well, it's a yes and no. People who get to know me well, then I guess know that I'm fairly malleable. I'm accommodating. I will try and so I find saying no very difficult.
Okay.
I find that a challenge, and I want to learn how. Sometimes it's good to learn to say no. But
I do
but
not fully agree with you. I think
okay.
it's not about saying no, because most of the time you are known for saying no to people that, other people were not willing to say no to. So you stood there and say, okay, no matter what the consequences are, I'm going to refuse this offer. I'm not going to do it. So I do
Yeah.
not agree with you fully on
No, no,
that.
I'm 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 quite okay. I guess I'm used to taking some hard calls in life. You have to do that because not everybody will be comfortable in taking those hard decisions. I'm okay to do that, I guess.
Yes. So saying
Uh,
no is not a challenge. Probably more you're getting invested in the thought of not hurting the other people. That is becoming a challenge.
true,
But
true,
knowing you and now knowing your personality, saying no had never been a problem. Now, not hurting people while saying no and taking that new realm into consideration is becoming a challenge for sure. But
true. No, I guess yeah. So I mean, people know I'm malleable. Perhaps not easy to convince, but some of the people who worked with us for a long time think that if I go to Dr. Arora, he'll probably say yes. But yeah, I mean, they have to go through the grind now, and
yes.
they have to prove themselves. That yes, it's truly worthwhile for us to work together.
Yes, so definitely. So the grind is crucial, is very, very important, and most people do not understand. So they either give up too soon or they have all these ideas of, oh, it's going to be easy, it's going to be simple. It is simple once they cross the test, but
One
the
thing.
test is really difficult.
True.
Thank
Perfect.
you
Perfect.
so much for joining us today. And if you have any other question, if you have why graphology works, how does it work, everything is mentioned in a few short episodes that we have created along with our episode here. So please write to us. My email ID is writ, at aditisurana.com. You can ask all the questions required. I know this topic is slightly complicated for people to have their first connect with, but give it a shot. It is a great experiment to look at. Thank you so much for sharing this, and I'm sure that you would learn different things and break your own boundaries in different areas that other people would get surprised by.
No, thank you, Aditi. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for inviting me on your show.
Mm.
And I wish you, great success. I encourage other people to follow what you are doing and take help from you. And happy to be have been a part of this journey with you. Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
doing
Thank
this.
you so
Thank you.
much.
Wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Absolutely Right. In the next episode on Friday, I will be introducing a special journaling technique called grapho journaling. In the year 2020, more than 1,400 people have dealt with their anxiety and insomnia using this super simple and extremely effective journaling method. If you would like to know more about your personality, people, signature in general, join me on my graphology masterclass. Our new batches start on first Saturday of every month. Our next two batches will be starting on 6th of March and 3rd of April 2021. Let's connect on Friday. Till then, happy writing!